Alrighty, beautiful humans, happy Monday. Welcome back to Embodied Impact, where we're exploring the bits and bobs to get into peak experience lifestyles. And yeah, today I'm super excited to have with me Charlotte and Jonathan, who are stress release experts. And yeah, we're gonna really unpack like how can we let go of unhealthy stress to unlock our innate wellness. And so, yeah, Jonathan and Charlotte are having the vision for humanity to really move forward in the most like authentic selves. And so in addition to helping people live healthy, meaningful lives, Charlotte and Jonathan aim to inspire more individuals to align with the global goal to ensure that everyone has access to good health and well-being, and whether that be physical, mental, emotional, or existential or environmental. So with that, Charlotte and Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. Super excited to unpack how we can let go of stress. And first question is, I'd love to know, like, how did you get into stress? Like, why is that a topic that, you know, nurtures you and like makes you feel excited to share and show up every day?
That's a great question. And first of all, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here. Obviously, Tobias, you was over on our podcast recently, so it's great to come and meet your community.
Absolutely, yeah. We're excited to delve deep into everything about stress. And kind of one of the reasons the main reason we got into stress was actually based from our clients. Really, one of the biggest things we realized is that every single client, like we've been in this space of health and wellness for 35 years combined, over 35 years combined. So we've got a lot of experience in this field, and every single client we've ever helped, every single person we've ever helped, it comes back down to what they're facing, comes back down to some form of stress, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever that is, there's some form of stress underlying that. And everyone knows the term stress. They know the word stress, but most people don't actually know what it means or really understand it. So that's why we decided to help people unpack that stress. Where does it actually come from? Because we both, in our own lives, in our own backstories, basically we've been through a lot of stress ourselves, which has led to a lot of suffering. For me, it's on the physical aspect of chronic pain from unresolved emotions and kind of blocking my passion, blocking who I am. And that's manifested itself physically for me in a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. So we both have a kind of good understanding of what stress or what unhealthy stress does to the body, what it does to your life when you ignore it and when you don't pay attention to it, or you don't even know what you're actually experiencing. So it all come kind of all around to our clients really, who helped us to see that everything they're facing, doesn't matter what problem they got in their life, is coming back down to some form of stress.
Yeah, we used to obviously, so we started off in the fitness space. So we started off working in gyms, training people into fitness leadership, to the point where we was in quite senior positions, national positions, where we're like flying all over the countries, all over the GCC. So we was working like 100+ hours a week, responsible for like 600 people in teams as well. So we had not only our personal history of stress when it comes to our own upbringings and obviously life experience, but then we was faced with those day-to-day stresses as well, kind of at that life level. And it's something that we noticed that it stopped people performing at their best, whether their best was to hit a fitness goal, whether their best was to hit certain numbers and certain deliverables in certain leadership positions. There was this real mixed bag of how stress was affecting people. And for me personally, I was at a point where I was taking care of myself from a fitness standpoint. I was eating well and exercising, but actually behind closed doors, I was actually really struggling. I was able to kind of keep that brave face on for everybody else, and my mental health was actually spiraling. And I think one thing that we realized is that this was just such a neglected part of who we are, and unless we actually work with individuals and individuals work with themselves on a holistic basis, that's the only way that we get to create lasting change in our lives, and then to impact the ones that we love and to show up and actually make the most of life. And it all comes back to some form of stress, whether it be mental, emotional, or physical.
It's really beautiful. And especially this part of, you ultimately really need to lead yourself first. Or you really need to lead the person that wakes up in your pajamas before you can really lead. And Also, I just want to say for everyone who's tuning in and listening, if you have any questions that come up for you throughout the conversation, there's a question box in the bottom where you can put them in and we'll answer them, or probably Charlotte and Jonathan will answer them, or you can put them in the chat and we'll get to them there as well. So, I mean, one thing as well from when you just spoke about stress that comes up is, firstly, how do you actually define stress? Like, what is your personal definition of stress? And then let's delve into good stress and bad stress, because Jonathan, it's something that you started tapping into a little bit already.
Definitely. So you'd like to define stress, and then I'll go into the good and bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So stress is a natural response system that we have inside of our body, and it's got a bit of a bad reputation. As where we're stressed, it means we're bad. Basically, when we're stressed, all that means is that there's kind of an on switch that's been clicked in our system, and we have certain hormones and chemicals running around in our body trying to alert us that something perhaps needs to change or something needs our attention more drastically, right? So it's really just kind of an attention grabber, right? So stress isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a natural response in our system. It's when it becomes chronic that it can start to become an issue. But stress also, I think it's important to include in the definition, is that even though it's a natural response, it manifests differently for different people. For some people, they have a capacity for higher levels of stress, right? And they can stay stressed for longer periods and actually be able to manage that based upon their health and their personal experience. But for some people, they have a shorter capacity, and or it can manifest as things like overthinking, negative thinking, anxiety, emotional outbursts, being overwhelmed, being underwhelmed, being completely paralyzed to do anything. So stress can come in all these different shapes and sizes, and I think that's also really important to think about as we start to relate to stress more and more. So anybody that obviously is here today, start to just ask yourselves, okay, well, now you know stress is a natural response. How is it showing up for you? How is it trying to grab your attention? Because that's really where any relief can start to stem from.
Absolutely. And stress, and it's kind of getting rid of this whole concept of bad and good stress, because there's no such thing. It's unhealthy or healthy stress. Is even some of the unhealthy stress, depending on the situation we're going through, can help us, but in the short term, it's like Charlotte said, it's the chronic stress that becomes a big problem. So for example, if your healthy stress is that stress that helps you grow, it helps you adapt, it helps you become more resilient. So if you're moving countries, changing jobs, getting to a new relationship, going from living in a extremely cold country to an extremely hot country, that adaptation is stress, and the body helps us to adapt, to become more resilient and stronger and more robust to handle those challenges and those stressful environments. But when it becomes unhealthy is when we start holding on to stress, and we're the only species on the world who holds on and repeats the same traumatic events or the same stressful situations over and over again. So a good example of unhealthy stress is, well, let's use a common day. Everyone scrolls through their phone. They go through Instagram, Facebook, whatever that is, and they might scroll across the post that triggers them. They might see something that makes them angry, makes them upset, and that response, they play that over and over again in their head throughout the day, and that activates that stress response, that what we call the sympathetic nervous system. So your cortisol raises, your adrenaline raises, you start to feel angry, you feel frustrated, and when that happens, your stress is switched on. You're feeling it, you're experiencing it, and inflammation happens in the body when we stay in a prolonged stress period. So even if we put our phone down and we go on with the rest of our day, in the back of our mind, that trigger is there. We're still thinking about that, whatever that post is we saw. We're still feeling that emotion, and our brain can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not. So even if 10 hours later we think back to that post we saw that triggered us, we're bringing up the same emotions, the same experiences, that same stress response is coming back up again, even though we're not looking at our phone. And then when we start to relive that again and again, and that's just a minor example. You've got colleagues you deal with at work, maybe family members that might trigger you, might be traumatic experiences from your past that you're reliving, or something that's triggering you on a day-to-day basis, and you're reliving that story, you're reliving that emotion again and again and again, and that's constantly switching on the nervous system, our sympathetic, that stress response, and we start to live in a state of chronic stress. And like Charlotte said, some of us have got a much kind of bigger window of tolerance for stress, that bigger resilience, which means they can go for a lot longer. Like me, I spent well over a decade in an extreme stress state before I started to really pay attention to the physical kind of manifestation that were being created through stress that my body was giving me to tell me to slow down. Whereas I know some people who would experience that kind of that chronic stress, but then 3 months down the line, they're debilitated to the point where they can't do anything or function. So it's knowing that what is unhealthy and what's healthy, and knowing that if you are being triggered by things that are causing you to relive that moment again, that chronic stress, is starting to kind of question again is why am I feeling this way? Why do I keep getting triggered by this certain post or this certain person or this certain event? Because that stress, it just keeps repeating itself. And the longer it happens, it affects everything from how we digest food, how we recover. Like from our day stresses, we sleep. We need to recover mentally and physically. But when we're stressed and chronically stressed, we don't sleep well. We don't recover well. So we wake up feeling groggy, we feel rubbish, we feel heavy, and we go on adding more stress to the day. And people go, oh, I feel like rubbish. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to do a hard session. I'm going to basically leave all my stress in the gym. I'm going to leave it all out. But what we don't realize is we're going into that situation in a stress state. So we're adding more stress, we're compounding that stress on, and we keep adding it on and on and on. And it makes the symptoms worse. So we start to feel more tension, more tightness in our body. We start to feel more overthinking. We start to feel more out of control of our emotions. And these are all signs of chronic stress that we're experiencing, if that makes sense. So the healthy stuff is like you mentioned just before we kind of jumped on, you're moving, you're relocating, but you feel stressed, but you feel excited. That's a healthy type of stress, because that stress actually helps you to, like, it's something exciting you're moving on to. So that's a healthy type of stress that you're experiencing, because it's preparing you for the next phase of what you're doing. But once you move and once you settle, everything calms down. And that's that difference between the healthy and unhealthy. We don't hold on to stress for too long.
It's really interesting, actually, like when you were speaking about the healthy and unhealthy. It seems like the healthy stress is a stress that can be turned into action, and the outside world changes based on that, while the unhealthy is the stuff that gets sort of like stuck in. Yeah, there's actually nothing to do with it. You get activated, but then the energy doesn't move.
It becomes blocked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or it does activate you, but just in an undesired way.
Yeah.
That's quite common too, right? If you lash out or you snap at a loved one.
That was my biggest thing. That was my biggest physical manifestation of my stress was anger. I used to lash out and snap like that without any. I got the nickname of the Hulk by the people I work with, because I used to be so angry all the time. Charlotte can attest to this. But that was my nickname, the Hulk, because I would flip like anything like that. If something would happen, I would go into work and the smallest little detail hadn't been done, and automatically within a split second I'd go from being like, okay, I come into work, everything's fine, to literally just effing blinding, shouting, and then I'd calm down and okay, what happened? I don't even know what happened at that point. It was such an instantaneous reaction. That's how my stress manifested itself for like over 10 years. And that anger just got more intense to the point where my body had to send me extreme signals to slow down, which was chronic pain for me, which was like debilitating chronic pain to the point I couldn't train anymore. I would lose part of my vision, like my vision would go blurry. Through the chronic pain. So at that point, it was so extreme, I had to listen, because it was affecting my work, it was affecting my training. And that was my go-to, was anger. And I didn't realize it at the time. I just thought that I was playing the victim mentality, whereas everyone's stupid. No one knows what they're doing. And I tell them once they can't get it right, so I'm going to be angry at them. I'm going to snap at them. And that was my go-to for like 10 years before I started to realize, hold on, I'm the problem. It's me that's causing this, not the people around me, not the situation. I'm responding in an unhealthy, unserving way to my environment, to what's happening around me. It's something inside that's my stress response is like literally switched on to the max as causing this to happen.
I think actually this anger example is really interesting, because it's almost like I'm having this vision of like this barrel that's already like totally full, and then just like a tiny drop, and basically there could be an anger response that's helpful, but it almost sounds like you always like stepped into like rage, like tapping into the whole barrel rather than just responding to the small drop. So question is, because I think a lot of people can relate to that, how did you actually start moving through that? Like, what were your modalities that you actually engaged to, empty the barrel so that you respond to the drop that's coming in?
Mine was a bit of a kind of a slow process. I was in that mentality of like it's all about eating healthy, training hard, and that was it. That was all there was. Like the whole spirituality, the whole energetic side doesn't exist. It was all woo woo. Didn't believe in it. It's all rubbish. And it took I could read it. I think it was Charlotte who kept read this book, or maybe read this. You might like it. Just kind of putting little hints in there and there.
Tell him little stories.
Yeah.
We weren't married at that time.
No.
We was actually working in a place in Abu Dhabi together. So we were actually colleagues. And so I was just like telling him stories every now and again, and then I was like sending him some books.
And I started reading these books, and I started resonating with the character in them because like the story was similar to mine. And then I started to it started to kind of slowly change my way of thinking. And then I've done this intense kind of experience, this course. I don't know if you heard of Robin Sharma, like a big leader in the field. Yeah, so I've done his 5-day intense leader without a title thing. It was partly to do for work, but also for my own development. And the whole point is again leading from within. It's like it all starts with you, and that was a big catalyst for me, and that really helped to kind of push out all those old beliefs out of my mind that didn't really make sense anymore, and realign kind of the person who I was aiming to be. And then after that point, I started thinking, okay, this makes sense now. It's about me. Everything I've created my own suffering. I've created the environment. I've created my reality around me, and I don't like it. And it's nothing to do with what's happening around me. It's to do with me. So what can I do about it? And that's when I started to think, okay, let's try different modalities now. Let's try something different. Let's try meditation. And I tried some guided meditation. Didn't get on board with it at the start. And I thought, okay, what else is there to try? So I tried breath work. So I went into the Wim Hof breath work method, the retention breathing, and I connected straight away with that. I was completely bought into the whole connection of breath, connecting mind, body, heart, and soul. Because literally, I'd done that, the retention breathing. I tried it. I thought, oh, this feels nice. I feel like a relief in tension. I feel calm. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to do this every single morning for 20 minutes every single morning. And 2 weeks later, I just remember exactly 2 weeks to the date I'd done it. I stood up from a session and I thought something felt different. And I moved around and I go, the chronic back pain I had for 4 years disappeared completely. I was like, I had injections in my spine, I had physio, chiropractors, medication, the whole lot. Nothing was working. And I remember just standing up and I was just moving around. And I was going, where's my pain? It's like, my pain's gone. It's like disappeared. And I thought, holy crap, this is amazing. And that's when the light bulb moment hit for me, that connection between, well, not just the breath in every system in the body, but just everything, the mind, the body, the emotions, the energy, everything started to kind of connect. And that's when I started to go deeper into that and qualify in breath work, in different modalities of breath work, retention breathing, conscious breathing, as well as quantum flow, and started to really connect the energetic side with the physical side. And then the more I started kind of listening to what Charlotte was doing from the emotional, the mental side as well, and that started to make sense and connect those dots. And I was like, it all works together. It's all an integrated approach. It's the mind affects the emotions affect the body affects the energy, and vice versa, and interlinked and crisscross here and there. Everything works together. And that's when it was a complete revelation. Okay, now it makes sense. Everything I have to do now, moving forward, has to be an integrated approach of mind, body, heart, and soul. That's how I stay in the most optimal state I can of high performance for me in every area of my life.
It's really amazing, man. I totally resonate with like the breathwork piece. I feel for me, like Wim Hof has also been a really big one. And just honestly, I feel that the level of like spaciousness that is felt is like, wow, this is so cool. It's literally this sensation of like everything sort of dissolving just by holding the breath and feeling like, oh, there's nothing to do, no one to be.
Absolutely.
And if you think about that, right, when we're stressed, we go into contraction, right? Our body's natural response is to tense up and it's to contract. So the minute you could do anything that helps you to come into expansion, you're immediately doing a pattern interrupt of what your system needs at that time.
That is really, really cool. And I feel that sort of moves us actually towards because most often when we're stressed, actually I think it requires a whole bunch of like conscious awareness to realize, oh, I'm stressed. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
for me, honestly,
100%.
probably over the last like year and a half or so, it's been little by little. And I mean, now I'm actually quite in a state where when I'm cycling, for example, I realize, okay, my body is quite stressed. So I start actually
Yeah.
changing my breathing pattern while I cycle.
Nice.
And then it's like, cool, awesome. You know, I'm basically like parasympathetically activating while my body is like obviously, you know, needing to work. And it's quite interesting. But I've also seen on your Instagram, Charlotte, you put out a post about like eye movements.
Yeah.
But what are sort of like other modalities, you know, like when people realize I'm stressed, boom, what practice can they do to snap out?
Well, here's the thing, right? I think that answer's twofold. I want to touch on one thing that you just said there is first we need to identify that we're actually stressed, okay? Because that's the really, really important piece to this, because we are stressed on so many different levels, and depending on what level you're stressed at will then depend on what the modality is that you need. Does that make sense? So what we help our clients with, and what we'll just touch upon with you today, is we have something we call the stress awareness pyramid, where if you imagine at the top of the pyramid you have what we call the life level, in the center you have what we call the health level, and at the base, the foundation of the pyramid, is the root level. And we all experience stress on one or all of these areas, one or many. So at that life level, it's where we're constantly spinning plates. We feel like we're kind of in the fire on a daily basis. We're reacting to life's problems. And if we're experiencing stress on that level, we need something that is going to interrupt that state, right? We need something that is going to stop us from solely focusing on whatever the issue is and getting stressed about being stressed. So something like shaking the body, putting your favorite song on, those instant things that are going to change your physiology are really, really going to help when you're at that life level. But that is a quick fix. Okay, so stop pausing in the middle of your work day when you know the work area of your life is really stressing you out, is really going to help you in that moment, but it's not going to create lasting change for you, right? It's going to relieve a little bit of that pressure. Now we have then the health level, which is in the middle of that pyramid. And the health level is when we are looking at 8 core areas of our health, essentially. Do you want to explain the 8?
Yeah, so the 8 areas, 8 core pillars that we look at on the health level are breathing meditation. So we look at how you're breathing, are you breathing optimally to be able to obviously increase performance, like energy, sustain your energy, stuff, increase performance like in the gym, or if you're going out for a run, a cycle, whatever. Also, from there, we've got movement as well. That's a big one. And we're not talking about exercise as in movement. Like the most primal thing your body is designed to do is move. If you're not moving, your body's literally dying. So and that's walking, that's running, that's swimming, that's doing yoga, that's shaking, that's dancing. It's whatever that is for you. Even going to the gym, it's whatever it is. It's movement that makes you feel great. It's movement that feels natural for your body to do. And then we've got nutrition and hydration. So again, another big point is what you put into your body has a massive effect on your stress response, and then the connection between the gut and the brain. And then from there, we've also got emotions. So emotions, like we've already discussed, are a big part of the stress response as well. So are we kind of sitting at that higher level of consciousness when it comes to emotions, or those low vibing emotions? Because emotions aren't good or bad. They're just high vibe, low vibe. So where are we sitting there? Quality of thinking is another one. So how are our thoughts? Are we overthinking, negative thinking? Are we in that process of going, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy for this? And it creates those very low vibing, heavy emotions. Also, energy is another one. So energy is another pillar. Is, are you able to keep consistent energy throughout the day? Are you going through those massive roller coaster highs and lows? Are you starting off your day with no energy and just being more exhausted as you go on your day to bed until you reach the evening? And then sleep is the next one. So sleep is number 7, which is a huge one. And out of all the 8, if everyone just improves their sleep, which gives you the highest return of investment and has a positive effect on all the other 7 in there, it's a massive win. And then the last one is action taken. You can have all the information you want in the world from all those other 7. You can know how to breathe. You can know what the right food is to put into your body. You can know how to move. But if you're not taking action and doing it, it's pointless. It becomes worthless knowledge. So you've got to take action on it. And those are the 8 pillars of the health level that we look at with each client.
Yeah, so that health level is, if anybody's listening to those descriptions and you think, okay, well, actually, yeah, my thinking is actually terrible for me. Like, I know that I'm my own worst critic, and that's like it stresses me out more than like somebody else might, right? Then you know that that's an area that needs some focus. So the modality for you, for example, in quality of thinking would be something perhaps like journaling, right? If you're struggling on that health level when it comes to sleep, then perhaps one of your modalities is to start to look at some kind of conscious breathing before bed, or a form of deep relaxation like yoga nidra that's going to help you to drop into those delta brainwave states so that you can get the deep relaxation you need if you're missing out on some sleep. So that's kind of a couple of examples of modalities in those areas. And last but not least on that stress pyramid is the root level. And the root level is really, honestly, that's really the root cause of all of the other things that are happening up the pyramid, right? If we're not sleeping well and our quality of thinking isn't great and our emotions aren't great, yes, sometimes that can be coming from a specific situation that's happening in your life now, but I would say 99.9% of the time, actually, it's an accumulation of unresolved emotions from past experiences, perhaps traumas that haven't been explored, inner child wounds that haven't been explored, our belief systems that are not aligned or we've actually consciously decided to live by ourselves, misaligned values. It can also be things like how aligned you are with your purpose. Do you know your purpose? Do you have a purpose? All of these different things will then impact everything that's going on at the health level, and all of those things will then influence what's going to happen at that life level. So I know it's a very long-winded way to answer your very simple question, which is great because I know that's what everybody wants to hear, but we wouldn't be doing anybody justice if we didn't bring awareness to what's actually going on underneath it all. Because in a world where we love quick fixes so much, we have to start to nip that in the bud and start to, like you said at the beginning, Tobias, is lead ourselves, right? Before life happens and you wake up and you're in your pajamas, like you said, like there's all this other stuff that's already happening before you add life into the mix, really. So it's so important to start unpacking that stuff if somebody's ready and willing to go down the rabbit hole on that.
And it's really interesting. I feel this pyramid is like so insightful, because yeah, if you're in the moment, just like in your day, then okay, shake your body, change the song, whatever, and kind of just have that. And I think it's interesting what you said as well, that it happens through the body. It's not like, oh, just change the thought, but actually like physically engage. And then yeah, when there's a bit more space of like, okay, I'm not putting out fires all the time, then basically going down the pyramid of, I mean, it's ultimately the personal development journey. And it's really interesting.
Yeah,
it's sort of like, instead of like going up, you're just like going down, and feel like really looking, where do the traumas come from in the first 7 years of my life, or that then turn into behavioral patterns that then ultimately make me not able to respond in meaningful ways.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important for people to recognize, well, where are they experiencing stress, and start there, right? Because personal development is such a huge thing. And it's a minefield. There's so many experts, there's so many books to read, there's so many podcasts to listen to, there's so many choices of leaders and coaches and whatever out there. And it's overwhelming, quite frankly. And it's really important, first and foremost, to recognize, okay, what is it do I actually need? Do I need to work with somebody on a skill level? Maybe finance is what's stressing you out because you literally don't have the skills. That would be a life level issue. So then go and learn those skills. But if actually it doesn't matter, you've got all the skills in the world, but you're still suck at money, then there's a good chance there's something going on in your belief system or something you've learned in those early years. So by recognizing what's your symptom, how is stress showing up for you, how is it manifesting, where does it fit in the pyramid? Well, right there, you have your first step into, okay, well, perhaps I'll start here. And from there, it's then like following the breadcrumbs to the next thing, right? Because then we realize, oh, well, actually, perhaps my money issues, for example, are because I've modeled something from my parents, right? Oh, there's an issue here with my parents, like not with your parents, but with your past in relation to your parents, right? And maybe how you're seeing the world. So it kind of has a knock-on effect. And some people know straight away that their stress is coming because they've got some really hard stuff that they haven't dealt with yet. And some people actually come to us and they're like, I don't know what my problem is. Like, I just keep behaving this way in my relationships, or I can't seem to push through this ceiling to get this promotion I want at work. And then they're not quite sure how to pinpoint it. So I think it's really important that people start to think about their entry level. You know, where is the problem, and then follow that personal development journey rather than go the other way and think, oh, personal development, and then they kind of go out in rather than in out.
It's important to see it as it's a lifelong journey. There's no end to it. It doesn't matter. It's every level. Like it's kind of like a game. You're climbing to the next level. You get to level 2, level 3. But the thing is, there's no end to the levels. There's like it goes to level infinity. It's your personal development journey is never ending. There's always another level to get to. There's always another level of performance in your job. There's always another level of performance in your emotional acuity. It's always another level you can get to and strive towards to become more optimized. In any area of your life, really. So I think it's like you said, getting rid of that quick fix mentality. Those quick fixes are good in the moment to help calm you down, but it's doing the deeper work. And that's where it gets hard, because like me in my past, I had no interest in talking about emotions, thinking about emotions. I was taught from a very young age, is you're a man, you're not allowed to show emotions. You can't show you're upset. You can't show it's weakness. It took me a long while to realize that that's a load of crap. It's the fact I wasn't showing and I was suppressing. That was a form of weakness, because that actually made me feel weak. And it made me feel like there was something wrong with me if something was coming up. So it's that thing. It's always another level, and it's a never-ending journey. Just knowing that every level you get to, you feel even better than the last, really. And that's great, because you know that I feel great now. I can feel even better. Okay, so next level. I'm at this one. I feel awesome. I can feel even better, and that can be never-ending. And that's the beautiful thing about self-development.
Yeah, I really love that you contextualize it's an infinite game. Because I remember when I was a kid, going through school, it seemed like, okay, when I go through school, when I go through uni, then I'm finished. And then you basically just like keep on steady state throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so it always felt like there was something to sort of like be achieved, and the quicker you can achieve it, the sooner you have like the steady state. And I feel it's really important to highlight when you explain that, it's this infinite game. It's like, man, just fucking enjoy the journey. That there is actually no stress in like arriving anywhere. It's just the joy of like being basically childlike with your beginner's eyes of like, man, what else is here to be experienced?
It's so true. It's so true. And it's funny though, because as much as like we say that, I remember I used to hear people say things like that, and I'd be like, shut up. Yeah. Like, I'd just be like, it's not enjoyable. Where I'm at in my life right now, this is hard. And I was exhausted, I was burnt out. And it was like, I get it now. Now I'm on the other side of the fence, and I've kind of felt that you can enjoy even the hard stuff. But when you're in it, it's actually really, really tough. So I think, in case there's anybody watching this that is really in it and really struggling, one really, really good thing that you can do is simply be your own wise witness. And what I mean by that is literally you can close your eyes somewhere, obviously comfortable if you're driving a car or whatever, please don't, obviously. But just closing your eyes and literally zoom out and like witness yourself going through an average day. No judgment, you're just witnessing yourself and be like, okay, well, how am I showing up? Like, what is it that's triggering me? But you're doing it from a distance, right? You're imagining you're floating up above, where you are, and you're looking down, and you're just witnessing like a movie, because you'll learn so much. And actually, when you do that from that perspective, you can actually start to distance yourself from the emotion and from the stress that you might be in. And it's just a helpful place to start if anybody's struggling there.
So we also have 2 questions, but before we get to this, I want to wrap the pyramid up, because Jonathan, you were saying that sleep is the single biggest return on investment. I also read a book by I forgot the name, but it's called Why We Sleep.
Matthew Walker.
Matthew
I've got
Walker.
that
And it
book.
was just
Yeah,
remarkable,
love
like
that
reading
book.
his, he had this cool thing in there, like this ad of if you want to feel like healthier, like less wrinkly, more sexy, like better, like in your emotional well-being.
Yeah.
Like if there was a pill, you know, would you buy it? And it's like, dude, this is all the things that sleep provides.
Exactly.
So, it's just like, wow. And I mean, it's also interesting there again with sleep, kind of the different patterns, you know, like, do we need to sleep 8 hours? Do we need to sleep 6 hours and take a like 15-minute nap in the middle of the day? In terms of sleep, what are your recommendations for people to actually get that sorted?
When it comes to sleep, people need to basically figure out what works for them. Like the whole 8 hours doesn't work for everyone, and the whole you need to go to bed at 10, you need to wake up at 5, doesn't work for everyone. There are certain physiologists, certain people who are well, night owls and early risers, stuff like that. So there are people who do their best work, creative work, like late at night. And there are people who are like really morning people, who get up and they're, okay, I feel great. This is where I'm going to be productive. So you've got to know what works for you. Fitting into the kind of society's norms of when you should and shouldn't go to sleep is only going to create a lot of suffering for you. So you've got to find what works for you. So, and that could mean going to bed at 9 p.m. It might mean going to bed at 11 p.m. But the whole point is finding that 6 to 8 hours window. Depending on you, you might only need 6.5 hours. You might need 8 hours. It really depends on the person. So during that 8 hours or 6.5 hours, your body will go through different stages of REM sleep, deep sleep, obviously light sleep. And the whole point is to fully recover obviously your brain, your mind, and your body. And then certain times of the night, your body will go through 90-minute cycles of these patterns of going into light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, and out again, and then keep going back. It's like waves. And then when you wake up in the morning, the goal is to feel refreshed. But if you, for example, one of the biggest disruptors to sleep is the alarm clock. The alarm clock, if you're waking yourself up and you're waking up midway through a dream, or like through your REM sleep stage, you're shocking the body awake, which is a minor traumatic event. It causes trauma and a stress response in the nervous system, which your body remembers, and you're not getting that full recovery. And I know, depending on the person listening, you might have a job where you have to get up at that time, and that's fine, because you're not going to just go tomorrow, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to sleep instead. You still need to live. You still got to earn money. So it's finding what works for you. Like maybe going to bed a bit earlier. Maybe there's you've got meditations out there like yoga nidra and stuff, which can help you to get that extra restorative bit of sleep during the day or maybe on the weekend. But it's important to find out what works best for you. So I'd say the first thing is find a stable going to bed time and waking up time. So within 30 minutes of each other. So give or take 30 minutes, find a time and say, if you say 10 p.m., so between 9:30 and 10:30, I'm going to make sure I'm asleep. I'm going to bed. And then you wake up at the same time every day. A lot of studies have shown that it's more important to wake up at the same time every day than it is to go to bed at the same time every day. So even if you go to bed at different times of the night, the most important thing is getting up at the same time to help keep that circadian rhythm more succinct. So that will be the first call, is have a regular sleeping pattern as much as you can. Obviously, for people who work shifts or different hours, that is going to be a bit hard, but try and do it as much as you can. The second thing is that hour before bed and the hour you wake up in the morning. Vital. Okay, your next day, your morning actually starts the night before. So that hour before you go to bed, no technology, no blue lights, okay? You've heard it, I'm sure everyone's heard it before. It stimulates the brain, it stops the production of melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. So even if you go to bed right up to the point you're going to sleep and scrolling on your phone, you might drop off to sleep easily, but you're not getting that sleep you need, because your body is still going to take another 2 to 3 hours to start releasing melatonin, which is your sleep hormone that helps you to get into those deep, those brainwave states that you need for deep sleep and REM sleep. So it's important, no technology before you go to bed, and find a way to calm down, whether it's meditation, breath work, reading, a hot bath, a cold shower, whatever works for you. It's finding something that helps to really calm your nervous system down. For us, well, Charlotte likes to read, or journal. For me, I can sit in silence and do nothing, or I can read if I feel like reading, or do some sort of breath work or something just to help calm the nervous system down. So it really depends on the person. It's finding that hour before bed is so vital to helping you get a good night's sleep, but helping you wake up in a more resourceful state in the morning. And then that hour you wake up is important, is you time. If you depends on your job, if it allows. So that first hour, what we do, actually, I think it's the first few hours that we do. It's all about us. It's our me time, personal development time, where we focus on getting ourselves into the most optimal state possible to be as productive as we can throughout the day, work-wise and personal-wise. If that makes sense. But it's all free.
Super tangible.
It's all free. It doesn't cost anything to do.
Exactly.
It's the biggest return of investment so you can get you, because it will affect your emotions, it affects your thoughts, it affects your energy, it affects the choices you make for the food you put into your body. It affects your breath and like your breathing pattern. It affects all of these things. It affects your movement and your recovery. So just by getting that right and optimizing your sleep, you have a ripple effect out to every other area of your life in a more positive way.
There's just one thing I'd add to that for any ladies that are listening, or any men that work with ladies, is that your sleep is going to differ from a man's sleep cycle. And it's very common that you try to kind of match the person you live with. And actually that's not realistic at all. So women need to think about what's called your infradian rhythm, which is your 28-day cycle. And we go through 4 different phases on that infradian rhythm. And throughout each of those 4 phases, the chances are you'll probably actually require a little bit more or a little bit less sleep as well. So if you do find that you're trying to set this same sleeping time and you're getting a bit annoyed with yourself because you can't seem to stick to it, your body's just not allowing it, chances are actually you're probably just out of rhythm with your infradian cycle. So it's just worth mentioning that, because a lot of the studies that are out there are predominantly done on men, and it's not talked about enough, so I want to throw that in there. So any ladies, go and do your research on infradian rhythm if this is the first time you're hearing about it, because it will change the game when it comes to your health.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's super important that you highlight that. Like, really beautiful. Yeah. Like, how is it actually for you as a couple? Like, when you're basically having these like different rhythms, like how do you sleep in the same bed? Do you sleep in different rooms to kind of like optimize your sleep?
No, not so much.
Yeah, we sleep in the same room. We sleep in the same bed. It's just sometimes I'll get up earlier. And Charlotte, sometimes she'll get up earlier than me.
I need a different temperature. It's funny, we were talking about this before it started. Yeah. So I have 2 blankets because John has like the AC like super cold. So aside from that, it's pretty good because we have like red light in the bedroom. So a really good tool like for like winding down at night is to have red light instead of blue light. And we have red lights in our light bulbs in our lounge and in our bedroom, and that really helps, because then John can go off to sleep even with the red light on, and then if I'm reading I can just turn it off.
Or we do use blue blocking glasses as well at night time. So like we are normal human beings, so sometimes we do like to watch a movie before bed. Like we want to watch a bit of Netflix or whatever, so we're not like robots where it's like, okay, we're not going to have any technology whatsoever all the time, but once in a while we want to watch a movie. So we'll use blue blockers that block 100% of the blue light. So at least that way we're supporting melatonin release if we want to watch something closer to bed, instead of having nothing on and obviously stimulating the brain too much.
So as a couple, we look really cool when it gets to bedtime. Us sitting around weird glasses on.
Yes, it looks interesting. But again, you've got loads of free things like keeping the room cool, blackout curtains, and then if you want to. You've got other things like kind of biohacking you can do, like blue blocking glasses, red light bulbs, EMF blocking blankets, stuff like that, if you want to spend money to really optimize your room. But you really don't. I'd say start with the basics first. Get the room cool, make sure it's dark, make sure your hour before bed is spot on in terms of your sleep hygiene. So no tech and really calming down. And then see how you go. If you still need a bit of an extra boost, you want to optimize even more, that's when the biohacking comes in as well. That's when you can spend a bit of money and really optimize as much as possible. But most people, when they do the basics, they see a massive return on investment.
It's awesome. Okay, let's get to the questions that Mi was asking. So Mi was asking, how can we convince a partner to be supportive in the journey of the energy work?
Great question. Great question.
Well, first of all, you can't convince anyone I think the main thing, what we've known from clients as well, is you kind of just got to be that. What's the word?
I would say the example.
The example,
so let
yes,
me
sorry,
ask
yes.
this purely because
I was that person.
I really wanted a supportive partner at one stage.
Yeah, and I was not that person.
So the thing that I tried everything, right? I tried the whole slipping in books, telling him all about it, just wasn't cutting it really. Like it got him started on personal development, but when it comes to energy work, it wasn't cutting it at all. So then I was like telling him this is what I want, right? And even then it's alien, like foreign concept. Like he just didn't get it, he wasn't interested. So then I was like, okay, well the only thing that I can change is me, right? And it's very, very interesting because as Tobias knows, I like to experiment with these different kinds of things. And I was like, okay, and then I like to journal a lot. So I journaled, okay, well, what's working, what's not working. And literally I remember writing down one day, I'm just going to lead by example, and through my own energy work, I'm going to kind of project it, right? Project it towards him with good intention, but also just keep doing me, just keep doing my practices. And as I started to do that, he would start to do it as well, and without saying anything. And I'm not saying that that's why he suddenly got on board, but I think just stop trying to change the other person really is the crux of it. Accept them for them being on their journey. Have boundaries so that you have your own space to be able to do the work that you need to do for yourself, but detach from the outcome that they have to be involved in it, because actually it's totally okay if you're on your path and he's on his path, or your partner's on her path, and as long as you keep coming back to each other, it doesn't really matter too much who's doing what work. And eventually I think naturally you end up coming back together, because as partners you're in it together, right? As partners you're actually more alike than what you think you are. So even if there might be some clashes or some disagreements, or one person values one thing over another, I think just always focus on yourself with good intention, from a compassionate place rather from like a selfish place, right? But always be considerate, of course. But like we started this whole conversation, is like you can't help anybody else, right? Even if your partner was more supportive when it comes to energy work, chances are, if he wasn't really ready to do that with you, he's not going to help you with what work it is you're doing. So I would actually say, and this might sound really harsh, is start projecting your wants and your needs onto the other person, and start really owning them and turning that, and use it as a mirror to say, okay, actually perhaps I need to own this. And standing in your own convictions, even if it means standing alone, is one of the most powerful things you can do. But I promise you wouldn't be alone for long.
Absolutely. I can attest. I remember every time Charlotte was trying to get me doing a form of meditation or qigong or whatever it was, it's like, what the hell is this crap? It's like, what are you doing? Like, no, I didn't believe in any of that at that time. I'd only just started my own personal development journey of kind of figuring out what I was feeling, how I was feeling. It took me a little while longer to realize that everything is energy. Thoughts, our emotions, our body, everything is energy. It's just vibrating at different frequencies. And then when I started to realize that, that's when I started to practice breath work and different forms of meditation. And then I found quantum flow, which we spoke about earlier. And that's when I really go, now everything I do, everything comes back to energy. Now, with clients, when we're doing something physical, you could relate it back to energy, because it is energy. It's releasing energy. It's emanating energy. It's embodying energy. It's whatever that is. So it took me a while to get to that point. But once I started to experience it and connect with it, that's it. I fully embraced it, really, for me. And for me, it took, I can't remember how long it took. Years. It took years for me to get to that point. So like Charlotte said, it's just, you've got to embody it yourself. You've got to be the example. You've got to be that role model, and do it. Just focus on you, and trust me, like, because again, everything's energy. What you put out there, you're gonna attract in, and it's hard not to do that energy work on yourself and have people around you be influenced by it in a positive way. They might not understand it, but eventually they'll start to connect with it.
Yeah, one thing I just want to highlight as well is boundaries for you, because sometimes it can actually be really hard to even get up and do a practice if you feel like maybe you feel guilty for doing it because you're supposed to be hanging out with the other person and this kind of stuff. It's so important to have those boundaries. So like Jonathan mentioned earlier when we were talking about sleep, for us, it's in the morning. The morning is our time to do whatever. If he wants to do energy work, if he wants to play a computer game, whatever, go do it. And I'm still going to do my stuff anyway. And I think, again, it just comes back to that self-ownership and really leading yourself as best you can. And again, the rest will follow. Let us know if that makes sense and answers your question.
Yeah, the self-leadership is really beautiful. Because the Buddhism that I practice, there's a lot of talk about basically happiness for oneself and others. And it's, so I notice it as well when there's somebody wanting to change me, there's resistance. You know, I immediately kind of block it off. It's kind of like, why the fuck do you want to come into my space?
Exactly.
But then, yeah, when it's becoming embodied, then I'm naturally curious. It's the same with kids. You know, like putting green beans on their plate is like, no, we want this. But then like having it on my plate is like, oh, Papa, can I try it? It's like, you know, turning it basically into the curiosity of the other person in some way.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
second question here. Also from me, do you think stress causes distribution in male-female polarity? And if so, how do you get back into the masculine/feminine?
Great question. So what you're talking about here is masculine feminine energy at the root level, right? So if we're talking about that stress pyramid, it will come into that root because we naturally find our dominant energies in those early years, right? So it's really, really great that you've recognized that stress can perhaps exacerbate one over the other. So first of all is the awareness. So that's really great. You're obviously already aware that that is possible, and it absolutely is. So for me personally, when I get stressed, I move more into my masculine energy and I want to control more. I want more structure. And the reality is for me personally is because that creates more stability, more safety. And again, in that masculine energy, that's what we're craving, as well as freedom. We want freedom in that masculine energy, but we also need that stability. So it's about recognizing in you what are the traits of that energy, whether it be masculine or feminine, and then recognizing, okay, what do I need right now? What of my needs are not being met? Why am I not able to feel balanced in my energies? So the flip side, for example, of that would be if you're stressed out and it triggers more of your feminine energy, perhaps you become a bit more needy. Perhaps you feel like you are more emotional about certain situations. Again, that would be really important to consider, okay, what are the needs that I have that are not being met right now so I can bring myself back into balance? So I think that question is the most important one. So what of my needs are not being met right now? And the answer to that question will start to bring you into balance. There are many things that you can do kind of practically, breathing exercises and things like that. The wise witness that I mentioned earlier, just zooming out and taking a look at what's going on, that can immediately bring you back into a sense of balance as well. But first, it's identifying what is the most dominant energy within you. Also, it's worth unpacking why is that your most dominant energy. So again, just using me as an example because it's easy here, is I learned that very early on that I needed to be in my masculine energy in stressful situations because of trauma that I'd experienced. I had to essentially almost like shrink my feminine energy so that I could survive in many ways. And that's actually, sadly, quite a common thing, right? For a lot of people, but whether it be male or female. So I also think it's important to explore if you want to dig deeper than just asking on that surface level, what are my needs not being met? Dig a bit deeper and start to understand why is this coming up in the first place? Because if you recognize, well, that's why, you can then work on that trauma or that unresolved emotion and you can start to let that go. And actually what you'll find is you spend most of your time in balance rather than in opposition. And that can obviously then reduce the stress. Does that make sense?
It's amazing. Yeah, I totally resonate actually with your explanation of like the masculine and the feminine. Also find for myself definitely getting more into the masculine. But then also in certain stresses I feel getting more into like the feminine of like really wanting to just be held and cradled and feel safe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with either, right? Like that's it. That's okay, right? Because it's natural for us all to be on that spectrum, isn't it? And to have this beautiful dance, but it's your awareness when that's happening that helps you to navigate it. Because in some instances that's completely okay to want to be held and to want that security from perhaps an external source, right? But the reality is that might not always be helpful, right? If you're in a work situation, perhaps you're managing teams at a very high level, you know, and your feminine energy shows up and you just want to be held and you're like you feel very emotional. Maybe that's not the right time for that energy to be showing up. So it's about then learning to navigate that in the moment, and that's where I think little tricks like breathing can help. But again, I would say get into the root of it, like just recognizing it in one thing. What needs are not being met? How can you meet that need as best you can right now independently before you then look at codependence and co-regulation? That's really important. And then you'll just start to naturally find your own way, because again, it's so different for everyone. We can be really annoying to interview sometimes. We're like, it depends for pretty much every answer, but it does. Yeah.
I totally feel you. It's like all subjective, because ultimately I feel, you know, if you're looking for like a guru or an answer from the outside, I mean, we're still codependent on bits and bobs of information, rather than actually really having a sense of sovereignty.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
true. Oh, Tobias has vanished. Oh, he's back. There we go.
Amazing.
Was there any other follow-up questions on those answers?
No, they were all good. Wanted to say, for anyone who's keen on your work, so I put all the links in the description of the episode. Is there anything that you're currently doing that you would want to invite people to?
Oh, what do we pick? There's so much going on at the moment. I guess, you know, there's two main things. One is that we have a scorecard for anybody that's listening and been watching this and are curious to dig a bit deeper to understand where are they experiencing their stress at that health level. We have a scorecard over on our website where anybody can go and just take a quick quiz, and they will get a personalized report and a bunch of videos with real practical, tactical information that will help them to improve the area that they need based on the score that they give. And the second thing would be the event that we've got coming up.
Yep, so the events we've got coming up is called, it's our non-profit event that we run, which is called Become a Force for Good. And we've got some really amazing, inspiring speakers that are going to be obviously at that, really helping people to basically just understand how to live authentically, live abundantly, live consciously. And the whole purpose of the event is to help basically people just give them some inspiration and some kind of practical skills to help them get from where they are now up a level, and kind of get them feeling more in flow, more at ease. And every kind of all proceeds from the event go to causes that support the 2030 global goals. So it's all about creating that awareness around the greater good at the while working on yourself. So you work and you realize just by showing up to the event, you make a small but very powerful impact in the world through supporting these causes as well.
It's super amazing. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you specifically that you stayed up past your bedtime.
Yeah, thank you.
Even without the light blocking glasses.
I know, we should put them on. How do you know you're talking about them?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been super insightful. I've taken like tons of notes, and something that really stuck with me towards the end as well, with like, you know, codependence, independence. I feel that that's a really, really like super important topic, and that whole quest for sort of like freedom and the ability to ultimately self-regulate, rather than always needing whatever, a substance or a person or a place to actually find a place of inner balance. So
and
thank you so much for doing the work.
I was just going to add there, is like all of that you've mentioned there, it's all in that root level. That's the deeper work. That's the deeper work that unfortunately most people don't want to do, but it's the work that they end up doing because life is going to make you do the work at some point, right? But it's great that you recognise that, because it's super powerful. And I think underneath it all, underneath a lot of daily stress, it comes back to that quest for freedom and that quest for stability at the same time, and that just is that beautiful dance that you just described of codependency and independency. So thank you for having us.
Thank you, it's been amazing. It's been absolute pleasure.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for tuning in and listening and asking questions. So lots of love. Have an amazing week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.